All right, good evening. Welcome to the January meeting of the Special Education Advisory Committee of Fauquier County. I'll have the secretary call the roll, and then we will have our two newest members introduce themselves.
So I'm actually standing in for Marilyn McComb.
Yes,
She is not
our
here.
acting
secretary. So we have Ashley Minmore joining us tonight. Welcome. I'm Ryan Perry, Megan Monahan, Amy Humber, Amanda Hazelhurst, and Anna Williams also joining us for our first meeting. So welcome.
And Marilyn McComb and Mandy Wooten are both gone for health reasons, so I believe they're joining us virtually, and we'll be watching the meeting on the live stream. Before we do the minutes, I would like to have our two new members maybe introduce themselves, take a couple of minutes to tell about your experience and where you're coming from. So if you want to just turn the mic, that'd be great.
I am a parent and my child attends Conti right now, Mrs. Gum actually helped us to create an amazing plan for my son, but prior to moving to Fauquier County, we were living in Stafford County, which is very difficult for us. My child didn't have much growth, but we moved here, and my husband, he was former military, so we moved around a lot, and since moving here, I would say it's the best county we've ever lived in the country. And so it's fun. I have two kids, and both of them do have autism, and we're very excited to be a part of the community by working with the committee.
Thank you for being here.
Hello, I'm Anna Williams, and I am also a parent of two children who are in special education services here at Fauquier County. We are based at Coleman Elementary, and it's an excellent school. We're very happy to be there. And I have a background in social work, I have a master's degree, and have worked in the field with children in many different forms throughout my history. So I've done after-school programs for young girls and empowerment programs. I have done clinical counseling in the past, and I've also worked in some of the community colleges around teaching. So I have a little bit of everything there, and then I also come from a family of teachers. So I have that background as well. But thank you very much for letting me be here.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Sorry about that. The minutes that the draft minutes that you received in your email had one correction. It was just a typo in the spelling of a word, so that's been corrected in the version that you have here. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the November 2nd meeting?
Motion.
Second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The minutes are approved as corrected. I don't believe we have any public comment this evening. Do we? Heidi, were you? Okay. Thank you. We're very appreciative of our guests who are here in person and on the live stream, so thank you. We have tonight with us Angie Gum, Special Education Supervisor, and Kristen Ott, an Assessment Resource Teacher, to talk to us about the update on the N2Y curriculum implementation. And then Jen Rockefeller was scheduled, so I'm not sure if she's coming. Would you mind just checking the door? I assume she could get in if she got here. Okay, all right, thanks. I just know that we're not, yeah, there's a lot going around, so we'll hopefully catch up with her and get her update, but if you all would give us the update, we would sure appreciate it. So you need to stand at that mic because there's a camera on you
Not
there.
have to be front and center right
Yep.
there.
Yeah.
With that microphone, I know.
So I think Brendan can probably tell you when you're on TV.
Oh, that's your favorite.
And I think you may have to be kind of sideways to us. I think that's the camera. He'll show you.
Let's remove.
Let's move you a little bit, just so you're not intimidating anybody.
Is the camera right? That's the camera right there. There you go. All right. So
Here.
you kind of.
Okay. So I'm Angie Gum, Special Ed Supervisor. This is Kristen Ott, our resource teacher. Several years ago, it was starting before COVID, and then things kind of got, so we were looking for, we have both worked for the county for quite some time. When we first came into the division, there was no curriculum for our students on the ASOL track. Teachers were kind of putting things together, you know, doing our old method of spending all weekend trying to figure out where your materials and things came from. And so with the advice of listening to our teachers and figuring out what we needed to do, we realized that we needed a program that would be universal across the division. So no matter what classroom you were in, if you moved from one school to the other, you would still have the same things. We were looking for that consistency. So we started at a high school level. We went with a program at that time. It went through textbook adoption so that we could renew every 3 years if needed, just like any other textbooks and things did. So once we got that established, then we realized we needed to start down at elementary and middle school. So then COVID hit, so we were looking at some things. We came across something, actually through the assistive technology team. They had shared with me, we had a conversation with this company, and from the very beginning I was like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. We're not going to be able to afford it. And they're talking about our surrounding counties are using it, and I'm still going, there's no way, ooh, this is great, we're not going to be able. Come to find out it was not as costly as what we thought. And so we decided to trial it. So as we were coming out of COVID, we trialed it with some elementary and middle school teachers, got their opinions, got their thoughts on it. And from there, like I said, it was hesitant because of COVID and everything we were going through, but at that point we were able to implement in the elementary level. It took some time, took some buy-in. It's technology. Some of our teachers are all about technology, and the others are like, oh, I can't do that.
Old school.
Very
like
old
their
school.
things.
Okay, so we got it established in the elementary. Things were going okay, and then the 3-year textbook adoption, we followed the same protocol that we had done with the high school. So it's on a 3-year adoption process in case in 3 years it's not the top of what we're looking for. But now it was 3 years we're coming up for the high school level. So we started talking again. We found out that some of our teachers really weren't using what we had previously adopted, and maybe it had just gotten older and things. And so the more conversation and the more in depth we found with its unique learning system under N2Y, they have several components. At this point, we've only adopted the News to You and the unique learning system. We have not adopted the other pieces. But we've realized that there was a large band from preschool through transition that could be adapted and that can be used. The good piece is it can be used to teach in a small group. It can also be taught individually. It can be done online. It can be done in a group. It can be done paper pencil. So it has all these pieces that you can adapt to for your ASOL students, and it follows the curriculum of the state standards for ASOL. So we decided that we would go universal with it, K through 12. And so we have now, for this school year, we brought in all of our ASOL teachers, and we trained them in September, and so we have a lot more usage this year. And so Chris and I just met with a company today to talk about where we were this time last year, where we are right now, where we need to go moving forward. So we did the big training in the fall. We talked about today, we still have some teachers that are hesitant. Remember, training is really hard for everyone.
And new teachers.
Yes, and we have new teachers coming in
already. Yeah.
So we want to do what they call it, say, an intervention session or something, but it's supposed to kind of like rejuvenate them, remind them of some of the things that when you did your initial training, you're like, oh wow, this is a lot. So now that they've been using it some, they'll come back in and show them other pieces. It's wonderful. It has data progress in it, and so it can really tie to what they're doing and tie to those IEP goals. So we're going to have that training again, and we're going to just keep moving forward with it. It's a work in progress, but the expectation is that all of our ASL teachers are to be using it for the purpose of curriculum for all students. It's adaptable. What I really liked, and I used it myself, we had a high school student that was about to exit, and he was not comfortable coming in the building. Mom had asked, did we have any resources? So I went to Kristen and I was like, how do I log in? And so it's done by units. So they give you units, and then those units go away and new units come up. But when they give you a unit, it was overwhelming, and all I could think was, oh, I wish I had this when I was in the classroom. So it was a unit. I clicked on a topic that I thought would be of interest. It was like 500 pages of things that you could do on all topics, all subjects, but it was all leveled. So if they had a story of the week for this unit,
It's broken into 3 levels.
3 levels. So the one would be when a child could not read anything, it was all in pictures. The next one would have some pictures and some words. And then the highest one didn't have, it was just words. And then when they did the assessments, your questions based on those, the same thing. It could be done, just you circle the picture that was related, or it could be a full sentence and you're to answer the question. Math was the same way. Math would be, if you were doing double-digit addition, it could have been, very basic, broke down and, 2 questions on a page, or it could be just what you would see out of a typical second grade workbook. So it's very broken down. There's science experiments on there that are based on it, all kinds of things. So anything a teacher could look for, it's there. You can use it as paper, you can use it online. It's very...
On the touch board in the classrooms as a big group project, that's, I see a lot of people using it that way. It's good for circle time.
Weather, they just updated the weather.
News to You is about adapting current events to a level that the kids would understand. So that's another really fun thing with that. This is high school's first year using it. They're coming along. The transition classrooms we have are starting into it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. So we'll continue, like I said, we're on a 3-year cycle. So we'll run this for 3 years, and when we come close to the end of our 3 years, we'll look to see if this is still where we are. They're always making changes, so I'm thinking it's probably going to be a good thing for a while, but if we need to come up with something, another.
One
we'll
big
do.
piece of our buy-in was when the state, Virginia, started going to our new online testing, the way the questions in N2Y are presented to the kids is the same way the VSOLs are presented to the kids online for VAP. So it gets them used to seeing that same format and
Yeah,
through the
it appears
answers.
this company is very much on board with not just the state of Virginia, but various states, and they're trying to keep it as closely aligned to what that state expectation looks like, so that it's conducive for the students who are taking those assessments, that they're getting that instruction in the same format throughout the school year. So I think we found it to be very good. Their professional development is good. Our contact person is always there to answer questions.
Fantastic.
It is a lot when you first go on, because there's so many avenues that can go in, and it is overwhelming. You're like, what in the world where do I go now, right? But I think with the training and support from us and letting teachers know, you don't have to do everything. Let's start small. Let's do a benchmark. Let's, start with those pieces. Let's do a topic that you're of interest with your children, so that they can become familiar with it, so that they can then utilize it. We have some teachers who use it all the time, and we have others who are acclimating themselves to it. So we'll continue to help support them and grow with the program, but I really think it's a good program. I think it's a good
potential.
choice for us to have. So, any questions?
Yeah, I'll ask one, and then Ashley, if you would.
Sure.
So, a couple things. One, help me understand, because I get the current event adaptation, but for things like math, how does that work? Are they different math topics that come and go, or is there like a Khan Academy kind of thing where it just progresses, or?
So you select a band.
Does that make sense? So is it like for this 8
So,
weeks, we're doing
so like
addition and we're not?
Right, so if you are a K2 ASOL classroom,
Let's talk about high school for right now. and
okay,
then-
so you're a high school band, right? So band means that's the standards that you have.
Okay.
So say you're a high school math and you have these standards for ASOL, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna get material for that standard. However, you're going to have 3 ability levels for that band. So if you pick a unit, this is what the standards are that they're working on in this unit. It's leveled into 3 categories. You pick which level your student can work on. You can always go back and revisit, and then each unit has different standards that you're working on. So you can pace yourself through it. They have the whole breakdown to tell you which topics are being covered in this unit.
Okay.
So you can decide where you're going, and then you can come back and revisit. So
So-
basically, you're planning around what that unit looks like.
So at any given time, there's a unit that addresses every standard?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that big
Yes. Yes.
group of things?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not just one unit that you have access to at a time. there's like, I don't know, 6 or 8 units.
They used to give you just 1 month's worth of unit. and
That was, I think when you were here last time,
Yeah.
that's kind of how you described
Yes.
it. Okay.
Now you have the whole year's worth. So
That's-
you can pick
that's
any,
great.
anytime.
And that,
you
because
want.
that was a big concern, that was a big
Yes.
concern last time. Okay, good, I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
And yes, there are some areas in math and a few in science and social studies that aren't completely covered by the N2Y. So we still need some of our old materials, or however you want to look at it, to cover some of these things, because N2Y isn't going to have like Virginia studies
Okay.
in their giant thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are still some things that we use from the past. But yes, the math, they just showed us today a whole giant thing of more math that I didn't know what was there. So I'm gonna start looking at that tomorrow, because it was pretty big.
It was called
It was
foundational
vast.
skills, apparently it's all in these sections.
Yeah, and
Which
they're
is exactly what I'm
constantly-
getting at, which is
yeah,
like,
they're
how do you
constantly
deal
updating
with
stuff,
that?
and
Okay.
they're hearing us when we complain about something or wish we had more of this or that. So, I mean, every time I turn around, every time we have one of these meetings, there's new stuff coming up.
Yeah, it's not a stagnant company where they're like, yep, here's what we have, here's
Yeah.
what you do. They're listening to their people in their schools and their teachers, and they're constantly
Yeah, they
updating
bought
things.
some other
Mhm.
company and have all of their rights now, so I think that's where all this math was coming from.
Do you know who that was?
Who?
What the other company was?
Idea? Yeah, it was.
I don't need it right now, but I'd be
one word.
curious to know what. So I can look at that.
So,
If you want to go ahead, I have a couple others, but go ahead.
You're probably gonna ask the same thing I am.
Go ahead. Well, then I won't ask it.
So I know that some classrooms have multiple grades. And I'm just curious, how does the N2Y address, let's say, for example, K through 2 within the classroom? I guess what I'm understanding, what you were telling me, was that it's on a 3-tier, so it's similar to like the assessment protocols that you guys use for, you know, education.
So if you look at those ASOLs, they're buildings. So kindergarten to ASOL and an area of math, say addition, will look like this. But then you're gonna have the same first grade math addition, but it's gonna be scaffolded.
Okay.
You started here, you moved here. Second grade's gonna kind of be the same, but you moved it up a little bit. So if you have a K2 and you're working on math and you can work on the same content, right? So this program will allow you, you might have a kiddo here in kindergarten who needs this level, but your first grader may be here, and your second grader may be here, or vice versa. You could have a really smart kindergartner who is strong in this area, they could be doing the high band. You may have a second grader who really struggles with this content, and they could be doing the lower
And,
band.
you
So
know,
it
it's
allows
like,
for that.
it gives you, as the teacher, you can teach all of the kids or take small groups or however that works. You can have them do stuff on the board. Then each kid on their Chromebook has access to N2Y, so the teacher gives them their own handpicks activities for them to do that they can do on their own or with their aid or whatever.
So my question, I guess, would be something you're giving Ms. Gumby. The children, when they have, let's say, for example, you have a kindergartner that's, you know, maybe a tier higher than the first grader, and the first grader's low. Is that something, at what point would you guys say that type of progress should be, does this program get implemented to the IEP, or is this just like?
No, this program is
Standard.
standard based on the ASOL curriculum that the state requires us to have. So if there's areas of weakness, then that might be a goal in the IEP, but that doesn't mean that's the only thing we're gonna work on. So they may have a strength in this area, and that's not in the IEP because it's a strength for them. So the program will still be able to touch it, we'll be able to actually take them to the higher band. And then for that goal that actually have, because it's a weakness, they may be on the lower band. So it's correlated to the ASOLs, and it gives us the flexibility to teach whole group and then to teach individually, because we know these classrooms are small size anyway, with pretty good staff in them, so it can rotate. They may be able to get their instruction level from the teacher and then rotate to the instructional assistant and then rotate to an independent station. So it gives that flexibility and gives all the materials in order to have that.
And this is my last one, sorry. So are the teachers kind of keeping track of, like, archiving what the progress is?
Absolutely, yes.
Tracking the-
Absolutely.
I know, oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, mine piggybacks off of your question. I have my teacher voice, so I'm very loud.
ahead.
So my question would be, right, obviously utilizing a computer-based system, it's automatically tracking progress and performance towards specific bands and standards. But is the county creating an alignment to assess effectiveness, right? When we're looking at performance on VSOLs, are we gauging impact of this program? And is there a way to do that?
So the program allows you to data collect, and you're right. That data collection can look various ways. It can be data collection of the assignment that the teacher is doing with the child. It can be progress showing when they're doing independent work, and maybe a kiddo didn't do their best on that. So yes, the data is in there, but it's up to the teacher to keep record of, this was an independent assignment, this was assignment done with me, and then how do you correlate that into progress reports, and then is that an effective measure of an assessment for the child? For some children it may be, for another child it may not be. You may have to create your own assessment based on that area. So it's very individualized. Like you could have children in the multiple disabilities classroom who don't have a voice, and so you have to adapt that. We have a child on eye gaze, and so how do we use that? Well, we bring in our AT people to help us figure out how do we assess the child, figure out where they're at. So it's very individualized. So yes, it can be used, but we also know we have to realize in what setting it was given as to how accurate that data is, and do we need to do something else? Does that make sense?
Were you getting at how do you
Totally,
assess
but
the
I'm
program?
looking at like countywide, holistically, right? If we bring in a curriculum and then our goal impact, right, is to increase performance on VSOLs, right? Have we looked at that data overall?
Well, since we've only been using this a little bit, I'm not sure that we have it. We need to push more into making sure that everyone is using it effectively before we begin overviewing that data
And this
into
is
that
our
kind of microscope.
Second year
Yeah.
doing the VSOLs the way they are. Right.
So yeah, there's
Then-
some work to be done.
Yeah.
But yes.
Okay, and then that pushes right into my next question. Sorry, Amy.
No,
I'm taking
go.
all the
This is
questions.
great.
So,
Prefer this.
right, looking at fidelity of implementation, what does like coaching and development for our teachers, right? Because implementing a brand new intervention program is hard, and then when it's a curriculum cross content areas like you have in special programs classrooms and elementary school, and you're teaching every single content area, what does the coaching and development look like for teachers? And then what does our fidelity of implementation oversight look like?
Two pieces.
Yeah.
Fidelity, we're working on.
Okay.
We have some people using it greatly, and we can track when people are using it. So we can have the conversation, well, this person's got it. Or we're like, whoa, what's going on with this one? We need to figure out where they're at. Maybe they're so uncomfortable with the technology, maybe their children, maybe there's some stuff going on in the classroom. Who knows, right? So it's up to us to track that and figure out how do we support them. So when we first started in the program, Kristen and I were trained, and we were like, oh, not a problem, we can do this. So we go back to train teachers, and they're like, okay. And then we're like, no one's doing this. Well, it's a little overwhelming. We're like, okay, fine, we hear you. So we took a step back, and we brought training in virtually from the company. And so then that's what we did at the beginning of this year. So we brought everyone in because now we're all grade level. So we brought them all in, all got the training. They all know they can reach out to us with any questions. They also can reach out to those teachers who have been doing it for a while who do a great job. But that's why today we had the conversation when we looked at the data. It was like, it's not quite where I want to be. What do we do? And so then she's like, well, we have this next training, and we're like, okay. So we're gauging it to figure out what we need to do, because we know you have to have buy-in, right, before it's going to be. So we're still working on that buy-in. Like I said, we have some teachers who've been doing it a couple of years. They're doing a great job. How do we get everybody to where we need them to be? That's our work in progress. And as we all know, it takes a while, right? I mean, you want it like, right now, you should be doing this, and then you're like, oh yeah, how do I get buy-in for everyone? So that's where we're at. We're in the early stages of that. But I feel like once they can really see, I think they become overwhelmed because it's so much. We can just get them to dive in. They'll see how easy they have it, that all this is at fingertips. You don't have to create things. It's already there for you, and it's already leveled. Already has the data points for you to use for your progress reports. It's there. Just take that step. So that's where we're at. We're still handling it.
I guess I'm concerned because if it was an SOL program and the teacher was just sort of not doing it because it was overwhelming, that wouldn't be something where we would just sit back and say, okay,
Well,
well,
that's
we're.
not true, because you still have SML teachers who do their old school way of doing things, even though we buy
Right,
it.
yeah, like-
So it's not
yeah,
they're not
it's not-
teaching,
yeah.
it's they're using their old methods that have always been effective.
Okay.
So it's a whole, it's
So
always
about
like
how
this.
much, like, in a perfect world, what's your expectation about, like, the percentage of time that this is being implemented in the classroom? Is it half the
70.
time?
Probably.
70%? Okay.
And then the other times you can fill in with your things, right? You've got
Sure.
your own ideas, you've got your past stuff that was a great lesson. And I get that, you don't wanna strip that, everybody has their unique individual way of teaching, right? But we want it to be uniform enough that everyone has the source that we are using, because we know it's so tied to the standards, and that should be your primary focus. Yeah.
What's your sense of, in the high school classes, how many, where this is being taught, like the curriculum is being taught across the year versus, oh my goodness, we're about to have the science SOL, so all we're teaching is, or not SOL, but the VAP for science. That's all we're teaching right now. And then we don't teach any more science.
But they all come in at the same time. They take all those tests in the spring. So you should be teaching everything all the time right up until you do that. So it's not like you're taking a science one in November and an English one in February. They're all due, and they're all taking April, the month of April.
February through.
So all grades are getting all classes.
All year.
Where do you think you're at right now with, like at the high school level, with adoption of this? How many, or what percentage would you say are at 70 and what percentage are at 10?
We'd have to dive into that further and get you an answer for that. Like I said, we're in the first year with it, so.
Ballpark, how many are
This-
where
this
you
is
want
high
them to
school-
be?
High school's first year doing it,
Okay.
and there's been some turnaround and this and that, so I'd
I'm just
say
trying to
we're
get
at
a-
about 20.
20 or where you want them to be?
20% usage.
Oh, 20% usage at all?
Yeah, so that's why we're following up with this next
Yeah.
session to say, where are we going? Because they're using their other stuff, they're using their other resources, they haven't had full buy-in with exactly where they need to be with it, and so we have to.
What, I don't want to call it enforcement, but like,
The
who's
expectation is the
yeah.
curriculum is to be used as your primary source of instruction at this point in time.
Is this now something they're being as part of their assessment as a teacher?
That I can't answer, because that comes out of their buildings, that doesn't come from us.
So I can speak to it as
Okay.
a teacher that's in a classroom. I'm not the full-time lead teacher that's in that classroom, but I'm providing a lot of support this year with a lot of guidance from people, some of them in this room. And I know that we have, Ms. Gum is kind of always checking in, one of our behavioral specialists. Matt Ralph is in our classroom a lot. He comes in and works with us and utilizes the program. When we are doing our progress reports, like it's a great tool to be able to support the data for those progress reports. So it really is to our benefit to be able to, to take this program and to utilize it to the best, that we can. But it is something else to learn, right? And to become comfortable with and figure out how that works. And if you have been, teaching a certain way or doing something that is working and students are responding to, and it's going well, and here's, a program to use. So I think that some of the teachers that, that I, have the opportunity to work with, they are seeing the benefit and, and you starting to utilize it, but it is that kind of like slow roll of, okay, how does this work with, I've kind of always taught the lesson this way, and it's worked and the students have responded well, but
Right.
it's a different way, it's a different tool for us to start utilizing. So I think, we don't have like, no one is coming in every day and saying, show me what you did with this program, right? But there are checks of people coming in and saying, hey, we noticed that, you haven't been using like the math part, or you haven't, do you have any questions about, this? Ms. Ott was just, spent some time in our building. I think it was Tuesday,
Yeah.
when did we come back? Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, she was there with us answering questions because we do have, a teacher that is new in our building that was not there for the initial training at the beginning of the year, and like even for myself. So I think that it is new and we're learning it and trying to fold it in. So even though it might be like, I heard just people say, oh, when it was 20%, I think that it's growing and getting there, but it's just gonna take, learning and becoming comfortable with using that.
Yeah.
So.
Can I ask this, can I say this now? So we have 20%, is that division-wide, or is that just
like,
Remember, these are
like
just,
certain schools. Like,
these are
it's
just our
individual.
ASOL classrooms.
Mhm.
So we're talking about just the ASOL classrooms. Right now, it's many more of the elementary because they're comfortable with it. It's our job to continue to push that through middle and high school. They've only been doing it since August. Training was in.
Middle's doing very well.
Training was in August, so we're trying to handhold and push out.
October.
That's right, training was.
And that's kind of really, like October, like that's still really new. When
Yeah.
you're talking about like the field of education, I feel
Yeah.
like when we're programming, like,
Yeah.
you know, like we still rolled like Linda Bell for a while. We still
Exactly.
rolled, you know, other things because
Right.
it does take that, I don't know, I just.
It requires a lot of support, and they have to see that it's working. And sometimes we have the meetings, just hearing their peers say, oh, you know what, I tried it with this, and, you know, we're doing really well with this, and then they're like, oh, maybe I should try this a little more. So,
You did mention that this was year 2, correct?
this is year 1 for high
Year
school.
one.
Year 1 for high school, year 2
Two
for
for
elementary. So at this rate, when
And-
we're going at 20% for the year just got in all.
Yeah, they're just, today when we got the information, we haven't had a chance to like dissect it overall, which that would include. And we have more programs because we have 3 high schools and all that. So overall, that was what the number, we'll dissect it now to see which ones are, where do we need to go, what do we need to do.
Well, and now that we have the new test scores for the VSOLs, do you have, or you could have some way to like look at that where we were? I know it's kind of apples and oranges sometimes depending on the kids, but have some way to look at progress there to see if,
We will get there, but that's not where we are at this point.
okay.
Does the company provide any insight into data collection and what that can be used for?
Yeah, they will share those data collection reports with us. Like, there's a whole host. Kristen's usually one to pull those reports. They've just got a whole host of reports for us to be able to pull, and if we're not understanding it, they can share with us what that data needs to look like, where we are with other divisions that are either ahead of us, or we started when we did, or what that looks like, so they can consult with us.
So what does that look like?
I don't know. We just had our meeting today, so we'll have a follow-up with her. We just got the data today of what it looks like.
It,
to
it
us.
basic,
But
what I,
from the elementary standpoint,
Right.
you've been doing this
Yes,
for a
and
year.
our elementary teachers are doing
So what is
way
your,
more legit.
what is your ultimate goal to use this data for? Like you talked about it being subjective, and you talked about teachers looking at the individual student and the progress that they're making. But as an overall educational tool, what is this data, I mean,
So there's twofold data. Our data that we're looking at is usage, so that we know that it's being effective. So that, at our level, that's what we're looking at.
right, because the system, I'm sure, is expensive.
Yes, it is, and I want to make sure you use it. You asked for it. We got
Well,
it for
yeah,
you.
and that was, it was a big SEAC priority to get the
But bigger-
curriculum, so.
The bigger data point is for the teachers to be able to put that data in the system, and I forget your name, but as we were talking, the data could be different things. The data for how they did with the system independently. Data of what it looked like when the teacher gave them the instruction and they completed it. So those data points are important when they're writing progress reports and when they're writing goals for next year. So it's important those teachers have this housing of data.
So it
to
singles
do
out
so.
each individual student and it puts their progress.
Yes, ma'am.
For each.
Yes, and actually, I even think, I'm pretty sure I'm right with this, they can print out the data so that you've got a graph. To be able
Yes.
to present to the parent and an IEP.
Yes.
That's our
was
common
the-
goal, is to say, look, this is where we are.
That's a good way to
But I
monitor
think
progress.
that those things are wonderful if they have meaning,
Right.
but when you get a graph, sometimes that's not very meaningful unless you know exactly what's going on, and since as parents, we're not in the classroom.
Right.
I mean, you as educators, you know what you're doing, and you've been there, and you know what it's like, but we do not know what our children look like sitting in these classrooms.
Correct. Yeah, and I mean, that data
And
is.
so I do think it's very important, but I don't think that, it sounds like there's real clear ideas of where you kind of want to take that as how would you know this is an effective program?
Well, at some
Sounds like
point,
that's coming up.
It'll
I
be
guess
the
that's
comparison
what you're
of
looking for.
what those VSOL
Trying to
scores
get
look
there.
like, how much progress they're making on their IEP goals,
Mm-hmm.
and what their bands look like in the system, how far they've improved on those graphs. So
Okay,
just
and then
compare
how
that.
many percentage of
Yes.
children are improving
Yes.
because of
Yes.
that
Yeah.
usage?
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, may I ask one more?
Yeah,
question?
sure, keep going.
Is there anything other than just kind of checking in, which is great, because it kind of keeps people responsible for themselves? But is there anything else that could be done to,
So we're in a grace period, right? So we're monitoring. We have our staff, like our behavior specialists, we have department chairs in the schools who know these things. So at this point, we're monitoring, we're supporting. We'll get to a point where it's like, okay, we're at a point, everyone should be doing this, we should be at this ratio. It gets to a point where we're not there where we expect it to be, and we feel like we've done all of our pieces, all of our check-in, all of our support, and we're finding that people are not, then it's our time to go to administration, who are actually the people who do the evaluations, and that'll be a conversation. We're not there, I don't wanna pigeonhole someone into that, I wanna make sure we've given them every tool, support, opportunity in order to gain it before we make that. But that is the expectation, that is where we would be.
And this is just for those of you who are newer, this is an area that's been a policy area for the SEAC for several years. And getting the school board to adopt this curriculum was a big priority. And I do understand that this is, it's a process.
Tacoma and I
It's
go
not a
way
like,
back
okay,
on
we
this
flip the
topic
light
for
switch.
years.
But I do think obviously the baseline issue is how many schools are using this and how many classrooms are using this. So I would really like to have a sense of what those numbers are as we go toward our annual report to the school board, because depending on where we're at, I think that is something where the SEAC needs to weigh in and say, we're pleased with the progress, we hope to see this much more improvement by next year, or this isn't being rolled out, and this is something that at the administrative level needs to go back down on the schools and say, just like if this were an SOL classroom, you need to, there needs to be more accountability at the school level.
And this kind of goes like with any textbook adoption. You adopt new reading books, or you adopt new math curriculum. It takes teachers a while. They're like, well, I still pull from this. I really like this. And how do you get them to disband that? That we're working well, because this is today's world, and this is what we need to do. So
Part of that too, though, is in most schools you have grade level teams who are kind of working together. So there's a little bit of, not peer pressure, but, commonality that you get that you don't necessarily have. You also have, I think, administrators who often feel more comfortable, sitting in and assessing how instruction is going in an SOL classroom versus a low incidence classroom. Right.
Have taught, like myself, and we also have where these classrooms are. None of them are isolated in a building by themselves. Like the elementary schools, they're in bands. Middle schools, we now have them in some bands. High schools, they're in groups. So they have their own groups, so they do have collaboration. They are not just sitting isolated, one school being the only. We've had that in the past, but we have moved those so that we have communities within the school that are ASOL students for that purpose. One, to get them with their peers and then typical peers, and then two, so those teachers can have someone to talk to, because it is very isolating in a building when you're teaching a different curriculum. So if we've got at least two teachers, at least you've got a community, right? And so we've worked hard to make that happen, and we have that with ours, so that there's a collaboration.
So, yeah, if you could give us a sense of what progress has been made from, we're now in January, like by maybe, we don't have a meeting in April, but maybe by March or so, like, are we headed in the right direction? Has there been progress?
And that's why we're scheduled to have this next session for the teachers, probably be sometime the end of January, to give them that next, maybe even a boost in morale of how wonderful the program is, and
And
some of their peers.
Even like by May. I think May is when we're going to be writing, and I just want to make sure that we address it, but I also don't want to, if you feel like you're on the brink, I don't want to do something that's going to cause.
Right.
Is there a goal to is there a goal that obviously everyone wants 100% to be compliant, right? But is there a realistic goal that we can project, perhaps, maybe that?
And then say we're on track or we're not on track.
By this time frame?
Again, I can have something in my head, but I can't go to a school and make someone do something. That's not a supervisor role. So when we see we're having a problem, that would be a conversation to have with an administrator.
And we have to look at it from a division-wide
average,
average,
you could have a teacher
right?
who's been really sick. You could have had a teacher that left, and we have a substitute. You could have a new teacher come in. So all those things have to play into perspective, and they'll be a part of that
I
percentage.
just want to clarify something that this would be just like, and I'm not going to pretend I'm my expert, but what I do want to clarify is this is any other curriculum, so when we adopt English curriculum, it goes through a process, and then the English teachers use it, but the administrators in the buildings are still supervising the teachers that are using it. So special education is bringing this curriculum to the special education teachers, but those teachers still fall under the administration of that building.
Yes.
So they're assisting and helping with the implementation of it, just like an instructional supervisor would, but they're not really responsible for the supervision to make sure it's being used, if that makes sense.
Right,
So
but-
I don't want to put that.
No,
I don't
and I'm
wanna
not-
put that burden on them as to
I
be
no, I
responsible with-
understand.
Now, they can follow up and say, hey.
But
this
they
is
should
the
be
data,
tracking
But
the
we have
data.
the data to track.
This is the data, and this is where we're at, but ultimately, the school administrator, just like any other curriculum.
Well, ultimately, the school board.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, I'm
So,
talking-
and we're-
I'm
but
talking
we're
on
the ad-
boots- I'm talking about on the boots.
I get
that's gonna be
it. I get it. I think that,
responsible.
I think the one difference here, and this, it's not as true with high school, because there was that little time that we had the other curriculum. But before this, there wasn't curriculum. So it's not like we replaced an old curriculum. I mean, every teacher kind of did their own thing, and some had great stuff. And hopefully those are the ones who are still doing their great stuff. But we also had teachers who really didn't have anything. And so that kind of vacuum that we're coming out of, I think, makes this a little more urgent than, oh, we're switching from these one English books to these other English books, and some people are using the old English books. It's not that
totally
situation.
understand, and I appreciate the urgency. I just want to make sure that the system gets a fair shake, because I think in
Agreed.
education, we have a tendency that if we don't see immediate results, we move on to the next thing, but we know that in reality, especially when we talk about students with learning disabilities, that it takes time to see.
Agreed.
To see success.
But it takes
And so-
compliance too, in order to see that success.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, what I'm getting at is that even if you had someone that was implementing this with 100% fidelity every single day, from February to May isn't a huge time frame.
Agreed.
So that's
My
why
que-
I just wanna make
I
sure-
don't expect that
don't
we're gonna
know,
be
and
there in
I
May.
want to make sure that that our expectations aren't unrealistic.
My expectation would be progress. Like, we're seeing progress, and this is what it looks like. That's what I would hope for by May. If we're not seeing any progress, and we've gone a full year, and we have curriculum that the school board frankly thinks is happening in these classrooms, and as a practical matter, it's mostly not happening, then that's something that we have to figure out how to address. And I know that we have building administrations that are on board, ahead of the curve on everything, and then we have some that, need a little bit of, to get
And they also
things
did an
moving.
introductory for the administrators.
Good.
That was gonna
Good.
be my next question. Yes, you did. No, so as a special education teacher myself, obviously, new curriculum is tough. So, and unfortunately with Fauquier, your supervisor staff is small, right? And we have a really big county. Geographically, it is very spread out. Getting from school to school is tough. So for the teacher that's struggling or is having a hard time with implementation, like what does that support and coaching look like for them?
So there's a supervisor assigned to every school, right? So we all have multiple schools, but we're all in the schools, and we have relations with those teachers. So if we're going in to do a quick walkthrough or even just an observation and we're seeing things, if it's me at my schools and I know the program, I can quickly support, right? If it's not me, if it's one of my colleagues, and they haven't had the training, they can either come to me, they can come to Kristen.
I've been out at schools.
Yeah, our behavior specialists are very well versed in the curriculum. They can support. So those people know that if they're seeing a red flag, even if the teacher didn't ask for it, if they're seeing a red flag when they do their walkthroughs, they know to come back this way. We have the support in the building, and so then we can channel it out for things.
What kind of support, I know you said that you're seeing more training from the company. Are there support modules that we're not getting, that we're not using, that teachers might be able to access?
Well, they're
Like-
always adding new things. Like she just gave us 8 modules today that we'll push out to the teachers. So when they have new
Okay.
things, they're sharing it with Kristen and I when
And
we do our
they're-
meetings.
They have a bunch of videos online. Every teacher has access to them.
Okay.
So
So you
when
have
we get
something
that
you can
search
say,
bar-
try that,
So when
look
we
at
get that
Right
new
this.
there on their
information, we're saying,
thing.
hey, this is new, check this out, this is extra. And when we meet the end of this month or 1st of February, they'll be able to tell the teachers themselves, hey, this is new, you might want to try this, you're struggling with this, you might want to go this avenue.
Is there some kind of recognition for the teachers who are doing this really well? That maybe
Kudos, Ms. Gum.
Well, no, because I'm saying like, in terms of like being a model for their peers, or not to put more work on them, because I know the whole mentor thing is a challenge in itself, but just some way to recognize.
We've had a few who use this program really well, and the last few trainings we've had, I have singled them out and said, this person's doing this really well. If anybody has any questions, if you can help so-and-so do
Great.
this. I mean, nothing.
And they're pretty close knit because they
On that.
they are small within themselves. So it doesn't matter what grade
20
level they're at.
teachers.
They know that, this is their unit, and so they're always willing to help each other out.
What role does the building-based administration play in getting their building on board with this?
So they knew about the adoption, they knew it was coming, they knew that from us, and then we invited them to the seminar per se from the company. So AP is in charge of special ed, so it could be the AP,
Bed
it could be
chairs.
the department chair at the middle high school, it could be the principal. We have some principals who are very vested in their special education teachers to start with themselves. So they've had that piece, they know what the expectation is from us, and I think when they do their walkthroughs or their observations, if they have concerns, they know to reach over to us, and that we can
What
help
role do
them.
we play in making sure it gets implemented?
Well, it's part of, as,
We've done part of their evaluation
Yeah.
process, they should be in the classroom, just like they would any other teacher.
Mhm.
The same question would apply
Part of
to
the
a teacher.
administration's evaluation process?
No, part
when
of,
they evaluate teachers.
when they evaluate a teacher. It would be the same case
So what's
for a teacher that's not.
holding their feet to the fire as administration?
Well, they're responsible for the students in their building and the teachers in their building, so if this is the expectation from the county,
County meaning
from the school board, and from the school board office, we adopted it, so just like any other curriculum, if a teacher wasn't following the English curriculum and they went into their observation, ultimately, principals the one overseeing in their building, it's
Right.
their,
But I know
their duty.
special ed seems to be a little different for whatever reason, I'm just thinking, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't be, because those are their
But
children.
for some reason it seems to be, I don't know, it seems to get.
Well, and I think that, at the very least, the SEAC can call the attention to the school, just make it known that this is an issue and
Many schools not doing it?
that it's being worked
No,
on.
every program, every ASOL program is participating in it, and the expectation is there, and the principals in every one of those schools that have them know
Participating
that.
in doing the training?
No, they know they are to be using
The
this
model.
curriculum with their students.
Every single teacher is using it then?
Every single teacher has had the training, and every single teacher has logged in.
And we're saying this is early enough in the process that we're still giving them an opportunity
Yes.
to show us that they're using it
But only 20% are actually using it.
at the
Is
level
that-
we expect.
If you look at your big scope of
Right.
everyone, correct.
Okay.
Your elementary
Eight
teachers are
where
using it
it's
much more because
totally
they've
adopted,
been used to
since
it.
this is a new adoption?
Well, and I think that's, rather than kind of pinning that right now, it sounds like what we need to do is maybe in May, maybe we can get an update and just kind of get a sense of where we're at, and then have that conversation for, I don't think there's anything that and if people disagree, I'd love to talk about that. It doesn't sound like there's anything that, there would be no benefit at this point of the school board doing anything. That right now, you're
We're in the
working
early
to make
stages
sure
of
that
pushing
people
out
are.
the production of the program.
Right. That at some point, the word's going to go down that this needs to happen, and when that happens, then
And I think it's going to.
everyone.
I think we're going to get there. These teachers.
Well, and the SEAC would say, I think would agree that we need to get there, but it's obviously not going to be in 2 weeks, so,
Yeah.
I'm hoping to hear progress.
I'm sure that's.
By May.
Those who
so.
do utilize the program regularly do find it to be very
Oh,
helpful.
yeah, they love it.
More so than the previous.
Yes, well, it makes their life
Independent.
easier. You're not spending all weekend trying to create materials, it's
Right.
already right there, so.
Well, and that can become the presentation, like, an actual example of, someone out playing tennis instead of collecting their data. and-
So it's looking at how to incentivize teachers because they're overwhelmed, and this is just another thing that they're saying, let's
And
do.
that's with any teacher, it doesn't matter if they're special ed or gen ed.
Do a lot of the computer programs change regularly? Is this something that they worry that they have to learn and then they'll have to relearn a new program at some point? Is there a
No,
way
we have a
to?
lot of teachers in this band that have been seasoned teachers for a long time. And so change is sometimes hard for seasoned teachers who have been doing something that's been effective. And yes, they were part of wanting it, but at
not.
the same time, it's like, this wasn't
Using
working.
regular.
So you
This-
have to.
Using as a.
Yeah, and I'll repeat, there wasn't a curriculum for these classrooms before. So this is, these teachers,
Changing their mindset. And you
it's
know
a
how most
whole
teachers
different
change
thing than
mindset,
just
right?
changing curriculum.
Yeah.
It's having curriculum.
Having structure too, and I think it's positive. I really like what I'm hearing. Just kind of sad to hear that only 20% of the division, the school divisions are using this program. Sounds like, this is something that actually could be very beneficial to the teachers and the students.
It is, and we're gonna get there, we will.
They're getting the word. I can tell they're getting the word, so. Okay, thank
Alright,
you.
thank you, guys.
Very much.
Have a good evening.
All right, and yeah, if there are any updates or anything you want to share with us in the meantime, let us know.
And I would just like to say, is one thing, is that we are a directly spread out county, and our departments
Absolutely.
are smaller as far as supports, but I will say, and it's not all sunshine and roses in Auburn or, Brumfield where I've worked, and, I definitely have had my frustrations, but anytime I've reached out to my supervisors, Ms. Gum was, in multiple buildings that I've worked with, and this year I've had the opportunity to work with, Mr. Corpenny. I have never gone to the end of the day without having them respond back to me. With either we will follow up.
I don't know how you all do it.
We will
I
follow
really
up
don't.
with you. We will get the information.
numbers.
Contact this person.
So, thank you.
But that's what we're here for.
Give me a call. So, I do want to say that even though it looks like that 20% seemed to be like the thing that we focused on tonight, but I feel like we are getting there. The progress is happening, and it. But I just have found in anything with education, with my own kids, special education, not special education, it is a slow roll, right? And so the support is there, and so I just want to make sure that everybody here and that's listening at home, heard that we do have the support to make it happen.
And that's,
So thank you guys for always.
as
being
our teacher
successful.
rep, I think that's an
I
important
greatly
input for everyone.
appreciate that this year.
So.
And Marilyn and I talked about this for a long time.
Yeah.
We're working on getting it to happen.
And, and I think that's why we care so much about it actually
Yes.
being
So we're there.
implemented,
It's
so
gonna happen. Just
that's
have to
good.
give us some ways to-
And let us know if there's anything that we can do to help
Thank you.
get it over the hump. Okay, thanks. Have a nice evening. All right. Mr. Napolitano, are you going to be reporting for the Special Education Department this
I'm
evening?
not. Mr. Coping had unexpected conflict, so I didn't know.
Okay.
I'm happy, I mean,
You have no report.
a longer one next month.
All right. Okay. Well, first is my report, so I will share my report. And some of this will, I will follow up with Mr. Corpening after the meeting. But first, Happy New Year to everyone. Hard to believe we're in 2024. I wanted to thank our speakers, but I will be sending them a note. I really, it's for people who work all day and do the kind of work they do on the day that everybody has come, all the kids have come back to school, to come and do an evening presentation is a big thing, and I appreciate that, and want to make sure that we say that every time, because usually our speakers have been staff people who are out there doing the work. So that's, I just want to make sure everybody knows that, and we appreciate our 2 new members, and we have 1 slot left on the SEAC. We have a 9-member full boat, and I don't think we've ever had a full boat since I've been here. So we have a couple people who have expressed interest in membership, and so I'll be talking to folks probably before our next meeting. The training, I think Ashley just completed the training. PTC does training kind of rolling throughout the year, and they have like a half-day training, and then they also have self-paced through January. You have that down there. So I encourage everyone to do this, every couple of years. It's also very helpful, I think, for any staff that are working closely with the SEAC. They talk a lot about what are the legal requirements, what are the meeting posting requirements. So when somebody's not familiar with that, that's all very helpful. There's no restriction on who can do it. You just identify yourself as being with the Fauquier SEAC, and there's no charge. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know. Let's see, what else do I have? I think my biggest I have a list of some things that are kind of still up in the air, and these were the things I was going to raise and ask Mr. Corpening if he had updates. probably the most pressing is that we were told in October or September that the county wanted to consolidate disability awareness activities into a March event. We're now way less than 8 weeks out from that, and I have not heard anything. I've sent multiple emails asking if I should be in touch with Ms. Brill, and
I'll double check. I'll get back to you on that.
okay.
I'm just taking notes.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
I'm pretty sure that that's.
But my understanding was that we were going to be part of that conversation, and I haven't been part of that conversation.
About it being in March or that?
About what's happening.
I think what's the county initiative, like what is the county?
What is it
going
gonna
to do
look
promote
like? Will there-
disability awareness?
Well, and will there be a poster contest? Who's going to be running that? Will there, what are the activities? I did talk to a place to be earlier in the year, and they don't have a program that's appropriate for sixth graders this year, but it sounded like they might next year. That was a really, really good program when we did that pre-COVID. So the second would be the inclusive practices plan development, which was part of the plan that Fauquier submitted to the state of Virginia when that law was passed, and we were told that there would be a process for developing an inclusive practices plan that would involve stakeholders, including SEAC representation, and that was last year, and it's January. So I just wanted to know what the status of that was. Also for Disability Awareness Month, what resources are needed, because I know last year I provided some links to videos and some other things for teachers, but I'd like to get a jump on that if there are any specific resources that folks need. And then the last question, and this came up at a previous meeting, and I don't think it really got answered, was, is there a specific school board member liaison to this committee? Because in the past, there has been, from the time that I started on the committee, and then we had Mrs. Pauling and Ms. Litter-Reber came to all of our meetings before and during COVID. And then after COVID, we really haven't seen any school board representation.
Mr. Campbell came to one.
He came to his very first one, and then hasn't, again, it may have even been before he was actually officially went on the board. So, yeah, so that came up as part of the conversation, and we're going to talk about this, of doing some sort of a recognition for special education staff and teachers. So I would like to have a SEAC representative participate in each of the PRC programs. They're the online trainings. If folks could just email me informally and let me know which ones you'd like to attend. Dr. Schlechter usually gives us a report about what she's covered, but isn't really comfortable, which is completely fine, in representing parents' concerns that came up during those. So I think that's something, it's a good way for us to kind of gauge if there are any issues that parents are raising. And it's good training too, so I'm sure that we have people participating already. I know I've been to a few of them. But it'd be nice if we could spread the joy on that one. So let me know but which ones you're interested in participating in, so I can make sure there's somebody for each of those. Also, just keep in mind we'll need volunteers for the SEAC table at the March 9th Disability Fair. That's going to be a Saturday at Fauquier High School, so check your calendars and we can talk about that at our next meeting. I am working on a February meeting speaker. I'm looking for a person with a disability and have reached out to a couple people, but if you could get in touch with me offline if you have any suggestions, I would like to hear that. I was thinking it would be really nice to have someone who used assistive technology, assistive communication to speak, or some other had some other, something to share that would be relevant to what we're doing on the SEAC. Finally, under new business, I am going to ask for a discussion about adding a June 6th SEAC meeting this year. We had to move adjust some things in our original plan, and so we actually have a pretty significant presentation in March, which last year in March that was the meeting where we really drafted the plan, and then we did the final draft at the May meeting. So I'm hoping that we can have a June meeting to finalize the plan and do the big draft in May. Since school is going into June this year, it won't be the week after school gets out, which it would have been in the past. So that'll be on the agenda as we go through. This would be the point, I'm sorry? When does school get out? It's that week. It's not like everybody left Memorial Day weekend, you know? So is it the day? You may have left. All right, so that can be, let's have that conversation, because it may be that we can do it maybe like, not wait that long, maybe do it in mid-June or mid-May.
Sometimes we just add an additional meeting in off cycle. Right?
Yeah, I think,
So it
and we
wasn't
could do that.
necessarily a Thursday night. It
Like a
was
mid-May.
Like a May 20, I don't know. We just, that was.
Yeah,
And.
and.
A working meeting, not a.
And we can have a work session that is, I mean, we still have to have all of our, go through the whole, posting the agenda and everything. We don't necessarily have to live stream if it's a work session, but it would definitely be open to the public, so. Okay, we'll check about that though when we get to new business. We do not have anyone here from the special education office, including the Parent Resource Center, so if there are any announcements, I guess I'd be happy to send those out with the minutes if you want to let them know. I'm assuming if Dr. Schlechter was here, her biggest announcement would be about the disability fair in March. So, keep your eyes out for those agendas, and hopefully everyone here can participate at least for part of the day. Old business, Disability Awareness Month update. I guess we don't have one of those. February SEAC presentation we already talked about. I was going to ask about the inclusive practices plan development. Is there anyone who already knows that they're going to be there and would be willing to staff the table at the disability fair? At least one person.
I
who
will be
could-
there representing Auburn
Would be
Unified.
busy. Okay.
So if Unified Table is next to.
Got it.
Like SEAC, I mean, I know we've
I don't
done
want
that
you to have to
before,
be,
but I mean,
like,
I can,
the lead
but
on
I
that,
will be,
but-
I'm
Okay.
already committed to be there with some of our club members.
And I am going to be able to be there this year, so.
I'll check my calendar too.
Okay.
if I can-
All right.
Do we know the times yet?
I don't know the times, but I suspect it's going to go most of the day. Like a
I may be able to be
middle
there
of
for
the
part of
day.
it. That's soccer season. So it
Yeah.
depends on
Okay.
if we're home or away.
All right, well, and like I said, I am planning to be there for a chunk of the day as well.
I'll check my calendar, but I plan on attending.
Great.
It's also mowing season.
Mowing season, yes. It's also Beauty and the Beast season in
I have
our
on my
family,
calendar
so.
10:30 to 3 is what I've
Okay.
blocked for my day.
Which is
to be
most of
there.
the day.
That probably includes,
Set up and
some
take
setup,
down.
like,
Okay.
I was hoping to get Haley and with setup, so and maybe like 12 or 11 to 2.
Okay. So, yeah, and I'll touch base with her too and see if there's anything else that she wants us to do. Which reminds me, we need to probably update our brochure that we did last year, so unless anybody has any objection, I'll just update the information in it. I think are we still happy with that format?
Mm-hmm.
It's being distributed at schools. I've been finding it on the counters, so that's a positive thing. I think that's maybe some of the reason why we've had some interest. All right, so we'll update the brochure. And then our next meeting, just keep an eye on it, it's February 1st, which is very early February. And then the March meeting, again, note that it's the second Thursday, not the first Thursday, because I will be at the state SEAC meeting the first Thursday. And that will be the budget presentation and a presentation on Tier 1 literacy, what's going on, and hopefully a discussion of other literacy interventions. No April meeting, it's during spring break, and May 2nd, it will be the policy and annual report discussion. So that brings us to new business, which is the addition of a meeting, which originally I was thinking June 6th, but it sounds like maybe we should be looking at mid-May. Tomato.
Yeah.
All right. University of Michigan watching graduate on the 16th, so that probably wouldn't be a good one. All right, so for the second. Yeah, there's no there's no agenda for the May meeting. The have a full March meeting, so the May meeting, the May 2nd meeting would still be the meeting where we would do most of the drafting. Hopefully, this would be final approval. We usually what ends up happening is we'll have a few drafted, and those get sent out to the whole group. And then we walk through the entire report and make sure that everybody approves the final, because the first year we were doing a lot of people drafting it over the summer and not an opportunity for the committee to approve it, and I'm not comfortable doing that. So I really want to make sure we have the final document, and then we'll get it to the
So I just want to be clear, so I know that May is when you guys do your review of what the school board is going to be petitioning the state for funds. So is that going to happen in March?
Okay, so the budget piece is Mr. Corpening has, by law, under IDEA, has to report to this committee about how the state funds are used. That's a relatively short presentation at the March meeting. At the May meeting, we're writing our recommendations to the Fauquier School Board on policy issues. Now, sometimes those are financial, but usually, the only one that I can think of, it's usually kind of a peripheral issue that it's financial. So, for example, adopting a new curriculum for those classrooms that we talked about tonight, or expanding American Sign Language instruction. So there's maybe a cost associated with it. We did weigh in on budget for social workers, to try to get a social worker at every middle school. So that we did kind of mid-season, but I would encourage everyone to read last year's annual report. Usually we start with the policies that we already have, decide if we want to add to those, and then look at any other issues that we want to add to our report. And that's what we would do at the May 2nd meeting, and then that would be drafted and put together, and then so we need a little bit of time to do that. How do people look for the 23rd? Is that graduations? May. I think, graduation is my son's is the 22nd, so the 23rd must be somebody else's. I'm away the 16th. I could potentially do it earlier that week, like the 14th, but then we're getting into different nights of the week, which people probably have other meetings different nights of the week.
Like that week of May 27th.
Like the 30th? It's a Thursday still.
That works for me. Does that work for everyone? Okay. Unless somebody's in the Scripps National Spelling Bee, which is on my calendar. Barring that, we're good. All right, so we'll make that tentative. And I will get in touch with Mr. Corpening. So I would say let's not take action on it. I think he's holding a room for us for the other date, for the June 6th date. So all right, tell me again which date, because I just want Okay. Is there anyone who knows they could not make a meeting on the 30th at this point? Okay, I'll check with the other two members. Assuming that works for the special ed staff, then we will we'll have a motion at our next meeting if that's okay with everyone. All right. Now member roundtable, and this is kind of an open opportunity. We'll just go down the table, an open opportunity for anyone to raise any issues you're concerned about, or things that you'd like to see on a future agenda, or announcements about things that are related to students with disability in our county that people should be aware of. So, Ashley, you want to kick us off? And it's okay to pass if you don't have anything. So.
I'm gonna pass this time, but I promise you, Joe will have a.
This is not a requirement, so, but I want to make sure that we don't miss anything.
I don't have anything for tonight.
All right, well, you've heard everything that I have to say tonight, so, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. See you next time.